Hello, hello. Warm welcome this fall from Rolands and Andrejs.
Yeah,
Great to see you in our first webinar this season. And today, as promised, we are going to talk very specifically about marketing content and about how to master the use of marketing content in B2B markets. Yes, and when preparing this content for the webinar, we also discussed with Andres quite a bit what at the end to keep in and what to throw out. And as with Hollywood movies, there's quite a lot of scenes or slides and ideas that are left out. And they were left out not because these were bad ideas or something, but for the sake of the flow and for the sake of the story. So make sure you follow Andres and you follow myself, because I feel that in coming weeks we'll be sharing quite a lot of scenes cut out of this content of this movie, if we can call it so.
let us introduce ourselves. Today we have Rolands Ozoliņš and myself, Andrejs Juščenko, as a speakers for this webinar. And let me just share a couple of words about the Rolands background. He's coming from the IT industry. He's almost the veteran of the IT industry, spending there over 20 years in different companies and different roles. And he carries a lot of experience in enterprise space. So how to really drive complex deals, complex solutions, how to facilitate decision-making process in such a complex environment. But he also has quite an exciting experience working with startups and being himself in the startup and building it from the scratch and up to quite a substantial revenue. And together with Roland, we already more than 6 years running our own consultancy and marketing agency business, and he has been involved in numerous projects across the Europe. And I think I always admire his attention to details and analytical skills. And you will see today in the webinar how much information he actually has gathered and prepared for this conversation.
Thank you, Andres. You really throw honey on me, and let me throw some honey back at you. So Andres actually, just like me, he's extremely experienced in technology industry. He has worked at telco, at Microsoft, and he's actually, I would say, a veteran of cloud business, of SaaS business when SaaS was not a thing. So he was running launch and was landing Microsoft's flagship product, Office 365, in I think some 24 countries across Eastern Europe. But let's maybe move on and let's talk a bit about agenda of today. So we will start and we start quite often with talking about how purchase decisions are made, because the purpose of content and the purpose of this webinar is help your customers to make purchases. Then we will talk a bit about from other side. So what are buyers saying? How content is helping them to make decisions, what they expect from content, and so on. Then we will talk of designing content. Basically, what are key elements which needs to be in place for content development to be really easy, and so that it's very easy for you to hand over the work of preparing content to somebody else. And then we will talk of how to distribute and how to scale content out, and we'll finish up usually with some suggestions and recommendations how to start with content. And as Andres mentioned, all your comments and questions are very, very welcome. If time will permit, and I think it will permit, we'll be happy to answer your comments and questions and so on. But let us start from how the purchase decisions are made. Andres, maybe a couple of words then from you.
Yeah, sure. I think we all experience this ourselves with entering this global digital, let's say, era, right? We see that the way how people preparing themselves for the decision-making process has significantly changed. And the major change, what happened is actually that buyers took over the initiative from the sellers. If you look back maybe 10 or 15 years ago, you will see that most of the buyer journey was driven by the salespeople. They were proactively approaching potential buyers, like involving them into different activities, inviting to events, workshops, and what's not. In today's world, customers prefer to stay on their own with the content, and they actually go and start with a very simple thing like a web search, right? And today we know that web search being upgraded to some ChatGPT type of and artificial intelligence type of tools where you gather initial information. You want to learn about certain problem or certain opportunity on the market, and you just turn to this global library of information and you try to find and navigate through that. And then what is also important is that those people prefer to ask for the advice or ask for the information from people like them. So they're turning to different communities. They actually prefer reading some analytic articles and maybe some influencers and other people like that to form their decision and to prepare information what is needed for internal conversations. And of course, during this process, they consume a lot of different content, and only when they almost done with their, let's say, decision, only then they actually turn to the salespeople and have a conversation with them. Yes, Roland.
Yes, and what is interesting? I mean, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when we were talking about this, we were saying that 66% of buyers' journey are done independent by buyers. But now this summer, Gartner confirmed that today it's 95% of buyers' journey is done independent. Buyers just do it on their own. And what happens at the end? At the end, basically, when buyers come to a shortlist or 2 or 3 sellers, then they are willing to talk with sales. So, and the trick is that just to get to conversation or get into shortlist, you need to help your customers with marketing content. You need to help them travel this path, take this journey to be able and actually willing to talk with your colleagues in sales. But let's look a bit at how this decision-making happens. The thing is that except for extremely small customers, purchase decision is a group decision, right? And we know that in group participates anything from 5 to 8 people representing different agendas, different departments, and so on. And what happens in that discussion? Basically, in one way or another, it becomes a bit political. People have different questions they want to answer, right? They want to make sure that solution will work. They want to make sure it will integrate with their systems. And most importantly, actually, they care about their own professional image. They care about their own career. So they really don't want to look foolish, and they really don't want to make stupid decisions. So nobody wants to look incompetent or risk their professional reputation. So, and what happens in these conditions? In these conditions, actually buyers are really desperate for quality content, right? And here is some data from Gartner, and I must say right away that this is not the latest data, right? Because now the situation is even more extreme. But the essence is that most of time of this buyers group time is spent on doing research and doing research independently. Just like Andrejs explained, it's search, it's talking with people, maybe participating in webinars like you are today, and so on. And research gets actually 3 times more time than the time buyers are spending with sellers. So seller, unless the buyer is prepared with marketing content, has really diminishing chance to influence the decision. And this is why the role of marketing content is so important. And this is why this importance of marketing content is actually increasing.
Nevertheless, meanwhile, of course, this kind of decision-making process, it's it's not a random process, right? It's not a set of random activities. There are certain stages that everyone needs to go through. And maybe you remember this example of marriage, or getting into the marriage, what we were using also in our other webinars. Here, let's imagine that you meet somebody, or you see maybe some person what is really like you would like to start some relationships, and there are certain steps what this relationship actually requires, right, before you actually enter into the marriage. And as in this example, you can see that there are steps like maybe getting in general introduced to each other, having maybe some dinner, and so on and so forth. If you have, by the way, any guesses, any suggestions about the order of those activities, please share it in the chat window. It would be really interesting to hear from you. But by this illustration, we would like really to show that you cannot avoid those kind of necessary steps. You cannot really marry someone without getting introduced, without getting know each other, without having some experience together, without understanding whether there is a match, whether there is a joint future, and so on and so forth. And if you go to the next slide, this is how this process actually look like, right? So first of all, you maybe recognize that there is really a person whom you would like to engage with. Then you maybe invite this person for the dinner. Then you build the trust and make your relationships closer by having a joint dance, and so on and so forth. And that is how those relationships develop. And this is not much different from what actually happens in the business environment. And in the business environment, it's called the buyer journey. And there are certain stages similar to example what we just shared, what every buyer goes through. So first of all, there should be a problem recognized. And that is the stage about the awareness. Do I have a problem? Or it might be about the opportunity. Do I have an opportunity to improve something, to grow my revenue or profit or anything like that? So if there is no reason, nobody will move ahead, right? So therefore, we need to really help people to recognize the reason, to understand the reason, why they need to do something, why do they need to change something. As soon as this is recognized, then they start to get interested into learning more about this problem specifically, so to build their kind of understanding of this problem or opportunity, but also about possible solutions. So how to solve this problem? What are the ways others are doing this? What their experience? How can I avoid risks? What type of risks? And so on and so forth. So they are forming their kind of understanding and preparing for the decision making. And only after that is passed, they getting into very specific solution related conversations. And this is a consideration phase where they are turning to specific vendors. They're building a short list of vendors. They're building a deep understanding of the solutions, costs related to these solutions, and many other things, right? And what is important to understand from the sales perspective is that there is a different readiness for having a sales conversation based on those different stages. The earlier person is on this journey, less ready or less open they are for having a sales conversation. In fact, they don't want to have it at all, almost, right? And moving it closer to this decision-making process or to the consideration phase, they are starting to have even proactively conversation with the vendors. They're approaching them, they're asking for the quotes, cost calculations, demonstrations, proof of concepts, and what's not.
Yes, and from my side, I just want to stress once again that the goal for marketing and for marketing content is to get to conversation. Because the tricky thing is that you really, as a business, you may not ever know that there was some kind of opportunity in market unless customer reached out to you. But to get to this conversation, actually, you need to start early. You need, most often, you need to start in awareness stage. You need to help customers satisfy their interest, right? And if that's done, then you can get to sales conversation. And actually, in our experience, we have worked a couple of times with companies who were very actively willing to go straight to consideration stage with rather complex technological solutions. And each time it either didn't work at all or it worked very, very difficult. Because during this awareness stage and interest stage, actually you are not only informing customer, but you are also building certain brand awareness, building preference, and so on. And also during this awareness and interest stage, it's extremely productive because people are open-minded. They are open to new information. Whereas when they go into consideration stage, they're more afraid not to make mistake. And then more important, all kind of risk factors, case studies, and so on become. Now, remember, right in the beginning, we shared with you that actually market is changing and buyers are less and less willing to talk with sales. And actually, if we look at market data, what was the change from year 21 to 22? And remember, that was a period of rather severe restrictions and COVID. Actually, across all generations of buyers, they have decided that they want to deal with sales representative less, right? So the willingness to work with sales representatives have declined. And again, that's another sign that actually companies need to really carefully think about marketing content, and they need to think of how to help buyers make their own conclusions, make their own mind, and how to help actually to include your offering and your company into a shortlist. Now, if we look at a bit broader landscape of marketing content, right, then the purpose of marketing content is what? Basically, it's to help customers or leads get better understanding of the problem they have or opportunity, to build trust so that they feel safe talking with yourselves, and also to create vendor and solution preference. And that's what we are talking about today. So basically, we will be talking about marketing content as it directly relates to marketing, and basically as it relates to two things. That's first of all, is building awareness and trust, and second thing, lead generation. There are, however, much more role for marketing content to play. So marketing content, of course, is involved in sales. Things like content and tools which are necessary for customer self-service. Even simple things like price sheets or self-paced demos, use cases, and so on. That is marketing content. And also in terms of sales enablement, things like price calculators, assessment tools, sales presentation, that's also marketing content. It's not that in every case marketing specifically is responsible about that, but we just need to keep an eye on the whole landscape. And then there is a customer success part, where success management is extremely important, particularly for SaaS business, just to make sure that customer is happy and willing to pay the price the next month, and so on. And here, of course, we look at many things like product guides, product training, product use sheets, also things like community forums. But now let's move more specifically to closer to marketing content, and let's discuss a bit of what actually B2B buyers expect from marketing content. And here we would like to share a couple of data points, right? And I think the first and one of the most important things to understand about buyers' expectations is that actually majority of buyers, before they are ready to talk with your colleagues in sales, they consume 3 to 7 pieces of content, right? So obviously it means that you probably better have those pieces of content, right, and have a content across buyers journey. Then the top content which is typically consumed is not changing much year from year. So basically, it's as you see on the slide: webinars, ebooks, research survey reports, blog posts, white papers, case studies, and the rest of marketing content. I think for us it doesn't serve much purpose to go deeper on what are the differences and so on, because that of course depends also from industry and specific customers. Then another important information is what actually buyers are saying back, what they think are good content, or what is the content which helps them reach their goal, right? And short story here is basically two things that buyers are saying very clearly. First of all, use data, right? And second thing is tell a story. And if we look more details at buyers' response, then first of all, of course, they are saying, yes, please use data and research to support claims. And that is something that I wholeheartedly agree, because it doesn't make sense to make any claim at all unless you can back it up by some kind of data. Otherwise, it's just cheap talk. And particularly if you are a newcomer in business and you haven't established trust yet, it's very, very important to substantiate all the claims that you are making. Just to give a simple example, like almost any company claims that they have very high quality of customer service, right? And that doesn't sound like a claim too strong, because from other hand, I don't know any company who's claiming that they have poor customer service, right? But if you can substantiate the same claim with, let's say, NPS score, or some other data which illustrates how good your customer service is, or how quickly you solve customer problems and so on, that makes this claim much, much stronger. Second place, actually, customers say that they really want to get a story that they can share with their colleagues in buying committee. And again, here, remember this picture we had in the beginning, many people discussing about the purchase. And for people to be able to become your advocate and support your solution, it's better that you equip them with strong story, so that they can easily explain, so that they have statistics to back it up, and so on. Because it helps, first of all, it helps for those people to make their point. But second, and even more important, it helps them to show themselves as an expert, as somebody who adds value to group discussion. Third place, buyers say that they would like to have more shareable assets, right? And here they very often refer to content being easy to download, easy to share links, and so on. It's not a good idea always to get all your content and only share it with people who register and leave all their contact details, email, phone, and so on. All right, and now if we look a bit further at what are other things which buyers say, then I think here's a list which we could all use as a checklist when we think about developing content. So let's go through that. So first of all, as I mentioned, buyers say very clearly, make content easier to access, right? Don't have extremely long registration forms. Don't have this stupid checkbox which asks you to validate you are human. Then it asks to recognize out of 12 pictures where is a motorcycle. Don't do that. Buyers hate. Second thing, limit sales message, right? And I think that's super important, because very often, particularly for very sales-driven marketers and for sales, they really want to push their sales message through. Don't do that. Try to be more empathetic. Think how you can help your buyers make decision, how you can make them choose which is best for them. Third thing, create shorter content, right? Again, buyers don't have too long attention span. They are sorting through lots of papers. Make it as short as possible, but not shorter. Fourth thing, and we talked about that already, use more data and research to support content. Again, don't make empty claims. Back up whatever you say. Each of your points you're making must be backed up with something. Next one, do not overload content with copy. So meaning don't write bullshit content. Nobody today wants to read texts written by ChatGPT. If you just let it go, it will write long, nice copy, but in terms of content or in terms of substance, there may be very little. So stay away from that. And of course, finally, they also ask for more insights from industry thought leaders and analysts, guys like, I don't know, Gartner, McKinsey, IDC, and others who are typically doing industry research. All right, now that we discussed what buyers want, let's discuss how to plan to meet their needs. And here actually the schema is following, and I think this is one of the key slides in this webinar altogether, because Andrejs and myself, we have been working on content quite a lot, and for us it always has been very important to figure out what's the right sequence of things, what's the right workflow, how to do the same in the most efficient way. And here are a few stages. And first of all, you need to start with go-to-market strategy, right? So do high-level planning, because unless you have it, it's very difficult to write good content which resonates with whoever is your target persona and so on. Second thing, develop key messages, do research. And once you have done that, it's very, very easy to produce content. And it's also very easy to produce third parties to produce content for you, because you already know answers to the most important questions. Now, today, we do not have privilege and time to talk about the GTM strategy in details, but I very much recommend you to sign up and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because almost every webinar we ever made is there, right? And also we have a quite extensive webinar about how exactly to do go-to-market strategy development in 10 plus two steps. So make sure you follow us on YouTube. There's plenty of good content, and we are publishing more like every month. No, but let's discuss perhaps what you should start with, or what you should know to really feel your audience. And maybe here I will ask Andrejs to join in, or else I feel I'm a bit occupying airwaves too much. Andrejs?
Yes, and the good content starts with a good understanding of your audience. And what does it mean, really? And there are different levels of this understanding. So, and we talked about this in our previous webinars, but just repeating again. So first of all, it all starts with planning your audience at the high level. So first of all, like what type of organizations do you approach? Who exactly are those people in the organizations who are making decisions or influencing those decisions? Yeah, which type of communities they are turning to for, again, gathering insights, gathering feedback, collecting information about solutions of vendors and things like that. And of course, it's also important to recognize those influencers on the market. And we know, of course, influencer from the B2C type of marketing, where you see people on the Instagram or on Twitter or elsewhere, YouTube, sharing, I don't know, feedback on new boots from Nike or anything like that. But believe me that in the B2B space, there are also influencers, and they are not maybe on the surface immediately, but still you can find them. Their communities are more kind of close and intimate, and you probably cannot see them having like thousands or hundreds of thousands of people in their communities, but still. And there are different ways how you can recognize them. By the way, we just had recently one conversation, and found interesting fact that those how you call them, certainly I forgot the name of these events. Maybe you, Roland, remember
Meetups.
those. Yes, meetups.
Actually.
Thank you for
Yeah.
reminding. Yes, those meetups, they're happening at almost every country, right? And if you turn to the meetup website, you can find, for instance, groups where people gathering on a regular basis and discussing different topics, maybe including your topic as well. And that is the way how you can actually find those influencers and engage with them almost at no cost. So, but moving further, when you have done this homework, then you need to think of your ideal customer profile or ideal customer or client, let's put it that way, right? And again, as you see on this example, you can do it by going from the very broad definition, like taking, okay, which country we are looking at, maybe which industry we are interested in working because we have this competence and we have solution which is tailored to this industry, maybe which processes within those companies we are addressing with our solution the best way, and so on and so forth. Those components can be different because you might have different solutions and different products. But what is really important is that you understand what are those criteria which helps you define your ideal customer, and then you can apply it into tools like, for instance, Apollo or ZoomInfo or LinkedIn even, and so on and so forth, to actually size your audience. And you will see immediately how big it is in this particular country or set of countries. And then you can also work on this further and see how you can reach them and engage.
Nevertheless, a couple of notes about knowing your prospective clients. So actually, today, if you look at available data on market and actually some data that you can get even from Eurostat using NAC E2 profiles, you can you can actually figure out quite specifically in which countries your customers are, how large they are they making profits or not? You can also get contact information and so on. And additionally, there are quite a bit of commercial databases available. However, they are of different quality. These are not perfect. But basically, very often you can get a very specific list of your target customers and just focus your marketing on that. Now, Andrejs, perhaps I will continue here, and then I will give word back to you. And another thing, if we are trying to understand our audience, we also want to know our buyers very, I would say, very intimately. And here is an example on the screen of buyer's persona. In this case, that is a technical buyer, chief energy engineer. They may also have other titles like technical director, manufacturing director. And this is an example from one strategy project which we worked on earlier. And creating buyer's persona is extremely powerful way just to a bit step into shoes of your buyers, right? And typically you try to do a profiling of these persons, right? And it's also helpful to have a picture so that you approximately know how the person looks like, right? Then you describe their demographics, right? And then you try to write down and think what are their goals, priorities, what they want to achieve, what they want to achieve, what jobs they want to get done with your solution, what are risks they want to avoid, how they are making decisions, what's important for them, and then other things such as challenges, possible objections, channels, how you can communicate with them, and so on. And a super helpful way to develop these buyers' personas is actually to do interviews with actual buyers. Just get them on phone and interrogate them. And my and Andrej's experience is that works extremely well. And actually, ideally you want to talk with approximately some five buyers, right? And if there are more than one type of buyer. Let's say buyer is both business person and technical. Then it would make sense to actually make 5 interviews of each of those buyers. Andrejs, now I give floor to you back.
Thank you. And of course, as Roland said, understanding your buyers or understanding your audience is a crucial for having a successful content strategy. And by the way, let's do a small exercise as well in our webinar. So I just share a small poll, and it would be really also insightful for us to understand where are you with your content strategy and content execution. Just take a moment to answer. But nevertheless, if we move to the next slide, Roland, then we coming back to the same concept about the buyer journey and the content related to that, right? And what is important to understand that the most of the content strategy focus should go to these 2 first phases: awareness, building awareness, and creating an interest about solving these particular problems or addressing particular, let's say, opportunities on the market, because that's actually how you build a demand for your solution. And there are certain content types what can be used for achieving those goals. And for the awareness phase, it's typically like educational, thought leadership type of articles, white papers, which are really lengthy and in-depth content, and many others. At the interest phase, it's already moving more towards the solution related. If at first stage, it's less about the solution, it's more about the problem itself and what can be done about this. And then at the interest phase, you're already introducing ways how this can be solved and why there are different solutions and how to select them. And you already showcase some capabilities, some advantages in the context of the problem. And at the consideration phase, those typically a different type of content, if you like. These are either on-demand demonstration or live product demonstrations. These can be also some tools like ROI calculator, TCO calculator, and things like that, which already help at this stage prove that your solution is will be addressing those particular issues in the best possible way and will bring the best possible outcomes for your potential clients.
Yes, and here what we are looking at, that's a concept, right? So for different companies, customer journey and the content used can be wildly different, right? So this is just a bit of a generalization just to help us communicate the meaning and the purpose of planning buyer's journey.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, but let's proceed perhaps and let's dig a bit deeper. And we actually have data from a rather recent report, and buyers were asked what is the most valuable content in different stages of the purchase process, right? And statistics shows that actually even in awareness page, people say that webinars are most valuable content for them, followed by research reports, then blogs, news articles, ebooks, white papers, and infographics. Again, don't take it as dogma. These things can be different for different people and different companies. Andrejs?
Yeah, I would like to add here a bit of the comment. As you can see, and you will see on next slide, that there will be repeating, let's say, content types. Like you here see a webinar, an ebook, a white paper. You will see probably at next some of them as well. But the difference is that the focus in this content quite different, right? If you run a webinar for somebody who is just in awareness phase, you should not be really pitching your product. As we talked about this earlier, simply because those people are not ready to hear it. They are not buyers yet. You need to form this need. You need to form the trust and your preference, right? However, if you run a webinar, which is already later at interest phase or even already in the consideration phase, it should be right to the product, like with the deep dive demos, with exploring different use cases, showcasing some benefits for end users, for technical personnel, and so on and so forth. So keep it in mind, it's not the same webinar. You cannot use the same webinar all across those different stages, or ebook.
Yes, that's actually, Andrejs, a really good point. Thanks for making it. And now if we move further on to interest stage, when people already understand they have a, either big trouble and a problem or big opportunity they are excited to pursue, right? Then they turn to slightly different content, right? And here actually top thing is case studies. Basically, case studies answer how others are solving the same problem or trying or pursuing the same opportunity that you are about to either solve or to pursue. Here again, analyst reports are ranked quite high. Still webinars, all kind of interactive, clickable media, and the rest like white papers, ebooks, and so on. And do also note that here in interest stage, actually people become interested in user reviews. So they are getting closer to purchase. They are looking at case studies, how others are using product. They are checking out what analysts say, right, and what other users are saying. And if we move even further to the closer to consideration stage, when they already know when they already have an intent to solve the problem, and when they are looking for solution, then again this landscape shifts a bit, and people are looking at demos, right? They very specifically want to be shown and want to make sure what the product is capable of doing. User reviews suddenly become much more important, because again here when they are in consideration stage, they very much think about risk. So reading user reviews becomes more important. They also are concerned about financials, so they are interested in return on investment calculators and the rest of things like assessments, webinars, also quizzes, and so on. So certainly there is some dynamics in the buyer's journey, and I would say that from my perspective, what is very important for companies to make sure is that their content is balanced and sufficient between the different stages, right? So we see quite often a problem that the content only covers the product and how to get it, and sometimes we also see that there's quite a lot of awareness content, but it doesn't really lead people to the next stage, or doesn't provide them with the possibility to move ahead in buyer's journey if they would be ready for that. All right, so let me perhaps remind a bit of a context of this discussion. We went rather deep in buyer's journey, but what we were discussing was a way how to develop content, how to plan content, and how to develop it, right? And now we are talking about go-to-market strategy part of that, like the most important elements in what as related to marketing content. Now, the next thing, if you are about to develop marketing content, is think about engagement strategy and call to action. So what does it mean? Basically, if you are generating demand, if you're generating leads, if you're planning buyer's journey, you want to plan a certain logic, a certain sequence, how content is going to be used, how you will use technologies, and how will you help buyers to progress in their buyer's journey, right? And that's very important to map out and understand, right? And from content creation perspective, it's also very important to know what role content will play, let's say, in buyer's journey or in funnel and so on. And here's on the right side is a very schematic, very simple illustration. So for example, we see that for awareness here are used, let's say, posts on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and also some blogs. And then in interest phase, there is white paper and on-demand webinar used. So obviously that suggests that the topic of white paper or the depth of white paper would be to satisfy the needs of buyer in stage of interest. And they are trying to figure out how to solve that problem, what are ways to solve, and so on. So this means in this stage, we probably wouldn't be talking specifically about our product, but we would be helping buyer out to understand the landscape of market, or how to choose the product, or what kind of criteria should they think about when choosing, or perhaps what kind of criteria they need to think about when choosing specific company, specific, let's say, company who implements the solution, and so on. And similarly about the webinar. But all in all, you need to think how the funnel, how the buyer's journey will look like. Perhaps you are using, let's say, quite a bit of content, and you are trying to guide your buyer through, let's say, a lengthy buyer's journey like here on the right. Maybe you are doing it very simply. You have just content which is followed up by call. And actually, just based on experience, in some cases, for some products, it works extremely well. So you develop a content which is very specific and very valuable for certain audience. And you know for sure that people who would be registering for this content have a need and they are very interested, and then just calling them up and trying to sell may work. Or maybe you have a completely different strategy and you are just using lots of organic content, let's say lots of blogs, with the expectation that people organically, let's say searching on Google, would find them. And then they, let's say on blogs, they have offering of sign up for free audit, and just, they are able to sign up. Andrejs, anything you want to add, maybe?
No, I think you covered it well. Let's move on and see what's next.
So,
yeah.
Yes. All right. So that's another element of strategy you need to consider. And when thinking specifically about the topics, what to write about, right? There are, I mean, typically the best way to figure out what to write about is actually go and ask your sales and support. What are the questions that customers are typically asking? Ask your sales, what are the questions which are frequently asked, which would help you sell faster if these questions were answered earlier, right? And chances are these people will come with quite specific ideas of what kind of content is necessary. Similarly, support, right? Support also often deals with problems customers have or lack of knowledge and so on. So this is good source of figuring out what you should write about. Another way is just to use, available tools like Answer the Public. It will provide plenty of Google searches or related queries. Also, Serpstat is quite good. It allows to actually get statistics of what type of questions actually are asked on search engines. Also, SEMrush does that. And the simplest way is just go over to Google, type topic in Google, and Google will provide you with queries which are frequently asked related to that. So if we would be thinking how to create content about content marketing, then it seems that good idea would be to create, let's say, a template for marketing content calendar, probably how to create ideas for marketing content, again, calendar template, and then it looks people are also searching for career-related information, and that's maybe not really your business. And also try to be creative, try to challenge generally accepted dogmas, right? And try to see maybe you can create content from looking in a bit unusual, in a bit unorthodox way to the same topic. And again, yeah, Andrejs, go on.
No, I just I turned to audience through the chat window, and here I also would like to ask anyone who has some good ideas which we are working for you in identifying topics. Feel free to share it. I think it's good that we learn from each other, right? Roland?
All right, Andrejs, I lost the sound of you again, but I imagine that, but I can continue and maybe I'll do that. All right, so now we are a bit returning back, just not lose track of what we are talking about. So we just basically talked about GTM strategy part of content development. So let's move ahead. And the next part is actually developing key messages. So figuring out what you really want to say. And I would recommend, first of all, to figure out what really you like to say, how the conversation would flow, how you want to communicate, right? And if you are specifically talking about some problems, then I would say that first of all, you need to get attention. And you can only get attention if you can explain how big the problem is, right? And typically, you probably need also to cover who suffers from problem. What's the business impact of that problem? Maybe somebody went bankrupt or lost reputation, or maybe something other horror story happened. What happens if problem is left unsolved, right? You have to give your prospects information. You have to get them moving. So explain how big the problem is. What happens if you do nothing, right? And if you do that, you catch their attention. They will continue reading. Next thing is help them explain how to solve the problem, right? And here are good ways to talk about what are the ways to solve the problem, and discuss what are benefits or what are problems with each of those ways, and also talk of what kind of customers would benefit from each way, right? And here what we are doing, the way I explained right now, here we are not pushing our solution. We are helping customer, explaining what's the market landscape, what it consists of, and what they need to take into consideration when they are thinking about it. And after that, obviously, we can explain our recommendation or actually share our point of view. And we can talk of how to select solution, how to select specific supplier, if more than one company can supply solution, how to organize internal processes, for example, how to organize internal buying group, or how to organize internal project implementation group, and what to do, right? What's your recommendation, right? So this is one approach to marketing content where I try to tackle problem head on. But there are many other things. Notice that this is rather universal or rather generic, and that is okay. You don't need to be a specialist at the stage when you are making structure and key arguments. But you need to check with business, you need to check with product people, technical, and sales, just to create the rough story. And now in the next stage, actually, you are going after let's say key arguments in terms of facts, figures, quotes, original research, data, graphs, etc., etc. And I would say that from workflow perspective, it's much easier to first figure out what you want to say, and then later find data to substantiate what you want to say, rather than the other way around. Because if you do rather way around, your focus is actually unlimited. So you end up with gathering a very huge pile of all kinds of facts, which you have trouble putting it together. So first think about structure, then think about facts. And here I would recommend the following. Start just by simple Google search and see what comes up, right? And very often when I'm working on content, I read blogs, right? And I read blogs for opinions, for the way of thinking, and also I look for references, because good bloggers also, they don't just publish their opinion. Very often they cite some statistics, facts, etc., and so that allows you to get to original research. Then it's always worth checking up what other large research organizations and consultants are saying, guys like Gartner, McKinsey, IDC, etc. Similarly, also look at publicly available statistics from Eurostat, OECD, World Bank, monetary fund, etc., etc. So it's surprising how much information different organizations collect about the world, about industries, about economy, and so on. And also, do not disregard academic research, right? Because that may provide just the right insight you are looking for. Let me give you an example about a case when academic research helped us to make real point. So I was working with one company who was providing very specialized, very high-end route optimization product and we went after garbage collection scenario. And that's actually, you wouldn't believe how complex decision making and optimization is if you need to optimize route and you need to take into account type of garbage, type of vehicle, time of the day, known and unknown restrictions on the roads, traffic conditions, etc. But the thing is that review of academic studies actually helped us identify one good selling point. And it was research that actually talked about the fact that if companies are switching from typical diesel trucks to liquefied gas trucks or even electrical, then in terms of emission, biggest impact doesn't come from what type of vehicle you choose to use, but from the route optimization. Because if you are running electricity-powered track up the hills, then you will consume lots of electricity. And if you look at CO2 impact from production of this electricity, then you will not actually produce better results, right? That was quite important point to use. And another thing is do interview experts, right? And experts can be internal in company, people who've been doing this thing for years, particularly technical people. It can be also external people. And very often, if experts even do not have like hard data, you can use quotes and you can create content based on a point of view of those people. And perhaps the most important thing is to validate your sources, because if you don't do it, if you don't go and check the source, you may end up producing content or having, let's say, your company's CEO stepping on stage and announcing for facts some kind of garbage, some kind of fake news, and so on. So that is increasingly important. But now let's move on to next step. So, and how to distribute the content, right? So we talked of what you need to do to plan the content, how to prepare and gather all the information, right? Content production itself then becomes very easy. Now let's talk how to distribute the content. And here the principle is following, that actually it works best if you produce rarely, maybe once per quarter, maybe even, let's say, once per half year. If you produce a really good, big, strong, really good, well-researched content, like let's say in this case, this is white paper, right? And then you reuse the work you already invested in gathering information, structuring your arguments to develop all kind of derivative content. So, for example, if you have a white paper, you can publish white paper, you can promote white paper, but you can also record webinar, which actually talks about the same things, maybe slightly from different angle, but basically you are reusing your effort, right? And if you produce white paper, you have lots of facts and statistics that you can share, let's say, on short posts on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter. Probably in white paper you have also some charts and illustrations, and that serves very well to create some kind of visual posts that maybe you can even post, let's say, on Instagram. Then you have chapters and paragraphs, and sometimes chapters and paragraphs make even good short posts. Probably you have lists, again, listicles or lists as let's say checklists or other lists make also quite good quite good source for, let's say, social posts. Then if you make a webinar, of course, from webinar, you can make fragments of webinar or excerpts, right? And this you can publish. If you made webinar, you probably have a presentation, and then you have slides of the presentation, which again, you can turn into different type of content. And as a result, actually, if let's say every quarter you have one big, really cornerstone content, you can fill your content calendar with smaller pieces of content for maybe 2, maybe 3 months, right? And that's the way to go. And actually, if you approach it like that, you can, by a large degree, you can solve the problem with your content, because actually, to fill your content calendar and to fill all possible channels with content, you do not need to produce original content every day. Actually, I would say that you need less original content than you actually think you may need. Andrejs, let me hand it back to you.
Yeah, I think you pointed very rightly. It's not a matter of how much of the content you produce, but it's very important, first of all, to have high quality content, because that's what actually differentiates you on the market. Because everyone nowadays produces a lot of content. With ChatGPT, that's even more than everyone, right? But the difference comes from the quality, and we hear it every day from customers of our customers that they don't want to spend time on low quality content, and they will not be giving you away their contact information if they don't see value in what they're getting. So therefore, that's the quality of the content should be a first priority rather than quantity. And you have to be very smart about how to repurpose and redistribute this content. And on this example, you can see it's maybe not for really reading. It's more like just to visualize how can be this content calendar framework built. First of all, you need to have certainly a content which is, going out quite frequently, like in form of social posts, maybe some short articles, maybe as Roland said, some maybe extracts from your webinars or white paper and stuff like that. So something you share on regular basis, maybe couple of times a week, or maybe even on daily basis, depends on your capacity. But this is the way how you can really keep your audience engaged. You remind them about yourself and so on. Secondly, you have to have something which is a bit more in-depth. For instance, a podcast on our own. In our own case, we have these Fry Talks, which are going every second Friday, live on LinkedIn, where we invite people, where we share our own insights, and we kind of facilitate the conversation and building community, right? And then you prepare for something more kind of serious. And run it on the monthly basis. So for instance, as a regular webinars, you have defined your topics, and then you run webinars like we do today, and we do it almost on monthly basis, where we go pretty deep into those specific topics what our audience is interested in, right? And that is the way also not how to distribute the content, but it also about building again a conversation with your audience, understanding what matters for them, what's not, gathering new ideas. And those webinars can serve you for, again, the first level, which we discussed on weekly basis, because you can then repurpose this content and again have this layer covered. Then you potentially might think of joining a third-party webinars or third-party podcasts as a guest, right? And again, that's another way how you can repurpose already existing content and reaching out the new audience. And last but not least, then there are really big gatherings. For instance, might be an industry events or some big expos or anything like that. which is owned by the third party, but where you can really get exposed to your audience. You can build your branding and reputation, and also engage people who are not part of your current audience. Those are kind of third-party events or whatever you call it. So think of this type of logic, that's something really easy to execute on the daily basis or weekly basis, and then you go to the monthly, to the quarterly, maybe annually, and what else is more applicable to your specific situation.
So let me talk about distributing your best content. Right, and here I talk about really cornerstone content, something that's really good and that's really worth investing effort to distribute. And here I would say that that such content deserves, you know, to put 20, let's say, % effort in creation and 80% in distribution. Right, but what is the best content? The best content is something that can go, as you can say, you know, a bit viral. A content which is original, which perhaps fits with the trend, which is relevant and maybe a bit unexpected. So things like original research. Good idea is perhaps to write a state of, I don't know, marketing industry in Baltics report, right? And if you create something like that, everybody wants to know what's happening in their industry, right? And if you're issuing it every year, they will be looking forward to that. Then it maybe also can be, let's say, interviews with influencers whom everybody wants to hear from, right? And if you look at possibilities for distribution, they are much, much broader than you normally think. Of course, you can distribute the content on your website as a blog, as a video, also as a banner to turn everyone's attention to the content. And then you can let's say, use socials, right? But don't limit yourself with, let's say, posting once on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, right? There are much more than that. You can make a company post, there can be personal post, group post, article, and so on. And think also about other networks such as Quora, which is basically question-answer portal. Think about Reddit, where are different subreddits and communities discussing different things. You can make Instagram story, TikTok video, YouTube video, and so on. And if you really want to get big reach and big impact, really invest in making sure that your most important content is available as broadly as possible. And then also do not forget about email, right? You already have probably some contacts who are receiving a newsletter. You probably have some nurturing content, automated flows. You can use direct email and so on. And also, if you have such a attractive content, you can also engage things like PR. You can get as a speaker on podcasts. You can make press conference. Maybe agree with some journalists to provide this as exclusive content. You can do interviews, launch events, and so on and so on. So the big point here is that if you are really making impactful content, you also need to make sure you have a very strong distribution of this content plan. And now let's talk about basically two ways you can distribute content. One is just publish. Another is paid distribution. And let's discuss this. So if you just publish content, generally it works, right? It's free, and as discussed previously, you can publish news about your content basically everywhere. Here on the right is some example of how I was promoting the guide I wrote. There were LinkedIn posts, there's a blog on our website. I was also using it to answer some of the questions on Quora, and so on and so on. It's free, right? But the audience is naturally limited, unless you have huge audience of followers. I have close to 5,000 followers on LinkedIn, but it's nowhere near, hundreds or hundreds of thousands that some leading influencers have, right? And you will get mediocre results. So therefore, I recommend to use other option, which actually means not only publishing, but actually doing paid distribution. What does it mean? It means actually pay for your content. And even if it's things like social posts, you can pay for that. But here's important distinction. Do not use the boost button, which you have on Facebook and I think also on LinkedIn, because that's a really dumb way to show your content to more audience. What you want to do, you want to properly promote your content to the target audience you decided. And good news is that it is possible. It's possible on Facebook. It's possible on LinkedIn. And what you can do, you can actually get your content, let's say such as social posts, regularly in front of your target audience. And it's also relatively inexpensive, right? And this helps you build awareness and build trust. And if you are promoting content that way, maybe you cannot generate leads directly, but you can make sure and see some statistics, what kind of impact is it making. And my recommendation would be to do it regularly, right? And particularly with your most important content to really use it extensively. Here on the right side is an example of us working with one of our clients to promote their case study, right? And you can see that even with small budget, we managed to show the case study to over 500 of people, which seems really not a big audience. But these were exactly people in their target audience. And engagement rate was great. So doing these things repeatedly, we can make sure that people are exposed to our content. And that in turn is really, really important to create awareness and preference for your solution, because frequency is what matters. So this is why companies are doing doing things regularly and publishing content regularly. Things like social posts, newsletters, regular events, and so on, right? And these things, if you look at where comes from influencers, politicians, TV stars, and so on, and also experts in successful businesses, very often their success is related to being exposed frequently to their audience. Let's take a look, let's say, at TV stars, right? People who are good looking, are quite speaking quite well, but otherwise are not perhaps too original. They often get very popular simply because every evening people can see them on TV, right? And try to think about content and cadence of content and content calendar so that you touch your audience very, very regularly. And here's a tricky thing. Here's a quite interesting psychology behind it. And you know, it's like 50, 80 years ago when most of discoveries in social psychology happened. It was noticed that actually strange thing happens with things, concepts, and so on, which people actually recall, right? And the principle, first of all, is availability heuristic. So if something can be recalled, it must be important, right? So if your audience can recall your message, can recall your content, your brand, they think you are more important, right? And another thing is called mere exposure effect, right? People also develop preference for things which they see frequently, right? And this means that this is extremely powerful way to create awareness and also create what is called mental availability. So regular exposure creates mental availability, and mental availability in turn means that you know, when buyer will think of their need, your brand will pop on in their mind, and that's what you want to achieve. Because you know, 95% of market are not actually considering purchase right now, but if they would, you want them to think of you, and that's a shortcut to get in the list of 2-3 suppliers that they actually want to talk with. All right, and we are gradually coming closer to the end of our webinar. Maybe Andrejs, maybe again word to you.
Yeah, thank you, Roland. And what I would like to mention is that you know, in terms of the content distribution, it's a matter of tests and tries, and you need to.
Right, let me check what's happening.
You need to make sure that your content is available at as many touch points as possible. And Roland mentioned that, of course, you need to cover the LinkedIn, the social networks, and things like that, but also use other occasions. And by the way, things like a webinar. So if you run a webinar and there are people who may be already part of your audience and maybe not, you always can refer to the content, what they potentially can use and develop their interest. And by the way, as we are trying to make it also interactive, we have something to share with you. and we are looking for the feedback. So we have created so-called marketing maturity assessment, and we talked about this some time ago. And maybe there are some people who have not heard about this or not. What I would like to invite you to is to try it and let us know what do you think, whether this is something what you see value of, or it's not valuable at all. But it would be really helpful to hear your opinion. So you can see a pop-up window on your screen right now, and you can learn more and try this for yourself. It's just as an example, but in general, as I already mentioned, so the main goal of you as a marketeer or somebody who is responsible for the content strategy is to make your content available at multiple channels, at multiple touch points where your customers actually can potentially consume this content. And this is not possible without technology involvement. So, of course, we already discussed about that. You need to know where the exactly audience potentially can search for your content, but make sure that you have as many processes as possible automated. And for that, there are tools like for the social platforms where you can schedule your social content distribution, you can measure it and things like that really can take over a lot of manual tasks and free up your resources. But similarly, you have to think of the marketing automation. And marketing automation, this is the way how you can really build these funnels in automated manner, so that it's not just, again, set of some random activities. Hey, we shared here or we shared there our content, but marketing automation helps you drive people from one stage to another with help of the nurturing campaigns. And that is what we strongly suggest exploring and doing. And by the way, we had a webinar on the marketing automation on spring, and we will repeat it very soon as the next webinar, because there is quite a lot of interest around this. Nevertheless, look at this as a good opportunity for you, because it's not only about taking and running these distribution activities, but it's also a matter of implementing a business logic, having some scoring mechanisms, measuring mechanisms on how the content is working, which of those customers who are part of your funnel are more ready than others. And by identifying them, you can pass it to the sales team, and they will be engaging with them at right time. So, and moving forward, Roland, if you can move the slides, please. I think what is important also, you will hear it a lot, and I'm sure that you already hear it from your teams, like how do we measure the impact? And I think when it comes to the content, there are different ways, and ultimately we all looking for the revenue as an outcome of any marketing investment. That's clear, I think, for everyone. But on the tactical level, we have to understand that there are different strategies involved into the content activities, right? And as we already discussed, there are awareness, interest, and consideration phases, and even more than that. And at every of these stage, you have your objective. So in awareness, as we discussed, your main objective is to reach as many people as possible from your defined audience and make them aware of the problem, make them aware of you as a company which can help solving this problem, making them, read your thought leadership articles and things like that. So therefore, the main things what we would like to measure at this stage are mainly about how many people we have reached, how many of them have engaged with the content, so that would show us whether the content we have prepared is really good quality and providing value to our audience. And it's also about the audience. So whether we are growing our audience, and a few things to look at are website traffic, whether, especially if we are hosting the content on our website, if we see an increase and from where it comes. Similarly, we can see at search KPIs, like whether we are winning some keywords or leading some topics and things like that. And of course, it's number of followers, because ultimately, when we share some content, we also would like people to become part of our organic audience. Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind at this first stage. And when you move to the interest phase, those things are slightly different. They come on top. So first of all, it's already about how many contacts we are gathering. So because at the first awareness stage, unlikely people will be willing to share their contact information and sign up for the let's say for some content in exchange of their contact information. As we discussed, they are not ready yet. At the second interest phase, they are more ready, and if this content really promising to answer their key questions, they more likely to become your recognized contacts. So they will be signing up for the white paper or for the webinar. So that means that at this stage, we're really interested in getting already known contacts. So leads, we might call them as well, right? Of course, engagement is very important. Of course, number of followers, whether it's growing or not. But at this stage, we already can have activities which help us to qualify those leads. Again, with help of different tools or content, we can see if those people are consuming it and if they are qualifying for our ideal customer profile. And then obviously we can measure things like a conversion rate at different levels and how much it costs to us to get a qualified lead, right, at the end of the day. And at the last stage on the consideration, we are moving towards the pipeline more and more. And here we are interested in how many very specific things happen. Like, for instance, if you are running a trial campaign or we are running some offer campaign. So how many trials we have generated with the content, how many offer signups we have generated, how many sales qualified leads so we have yielded, and how many actually how the pipeline looks like, what the impact on the pipeline which has been generated by the marketing. Those are just few examples, because of course they are very much depends on your business specifics, but just to give you an idea and give you a direction of thought process. Yes, Roland, you always have to something to add valuable.
Yes, and just one important note. It's proven that Google Analytics actually reports traffic from social networks extremely imprecisely, right? So typically it reports it as direct traffic. That has been proven. So do not necessarily look at the Google Analytics as a source of truth in terms of how well you are doing on socials. So, and another thing, and I think, again, I want to stress what Andrejs already said, is that I really recommend to stay away from trying to register people when they are in awareness stage, or maybe even if they are in interest stage. I have seen companies that are requiring to submit, I don't know, perhaps 20 field form, even if you want to download their sales brochure, and that just scares customers away. Help them out and try to spread the word. So liberate your content, make it as easy to get as possible. Of course, until you get to consideration stage. Now, talking a bit about technology, and we are getting very close to finishing, so we'll not spend too much time here. In ideal world, you would actually want to have a clear, dashboards with exact details about your audience, about traffic from different channels, what kind of content is consumed, how much it costs, and so on. And I would say that for many companies that would help to really improve their, let's say, content marketing game big time. Unfortunately, this is not an easy thing to do, but we have figured out how to do it and how used for number of projects. So doable it is. And now, as we are closing to our 90-minute like limit, let's talk a bit about the next steps. Andrejs?
Yeah, and what we can recommend, to summarize, first of all, I think it's about really understanding the burning questions of your audience they need help with. So that will determine the relevance and success of your content. That's the first step. And we explained how you can do that. There are definitely other ways of doing this, but you can start with these simple things like just having interviews with your salespeople, services people, with the customers directly, right? Then it's about really preparing valuable content, and that content value comes from deep research, spending time on gathering insights, and then turning it into some regular communication. So we all discussed how you can do that without really a huge effort. You can create one valuable piece of content in different format, whether it's a webinar or whether it's a white paper or anything like that, and then repurpose it to make it regularly visible on those different channels. And then just enrich it with customer stories. As Roland said, especially if you are targeting customers who are in active, let's say, research phase, when they are trying to find a solution, and that is where you need to really prove that you are you can be trusted by them. And we have seen that those customer stories, they are valued by many of our customers. Of course, it's not easy to get your clients agreeing and speaking on your behalf, and sometimes topics are very sensitive. But there are different ways how you can do that. Even anonymous stories can work if there is no way to get the logo approved on this story, right? And last but not least, don't forget to make it as a system. Yeah, one touch point or one activity will not probably yield into sufficient results. So build a nurturing funnels and automate them to scale, because without scaling, it will be very, very difficult to build a strong pipeline. So if you need help, you always can turn to us and schedule a content strategy review session. It's completely free, and we just sit together one-on-one, and we take your concrete situation, your specific situation, and look at it from our experience perspective, right? We just share a few of frameworks we used in our work, in our projects. We have more, and that is where we can sit together and have a quick discussion. So your takeaway will be, again, discovered opportunities where you can improve, and some recommendations based on our experience. It's up to you to take it or not, but it's available, and why not to use that? And if you are interested, then you can also use another banner, what is currently on your screen, and go directly to our call booking page and select the slot which suits best for you, and we will meet and discuss. So use this opportunity, and we promise that we don't expect you to buy anything from us. It's a matter of sharing from our side, and main interest from us is also learning from you. By that, I would like to ask you if you have any questions, guys. If you have any, please feel free to share them in the chat window. But if not, I think we would like to really thank you for being with us today. It's our first webinar after summer holidays. We are looking forward to have more, and stay tuned. We will definitely share as I mentioned, like marketing automation is something what we will announce soon, and there are some others. And yeah, we are looking forward to have a conversation with you.
Yes, thank you for joining us, and see you next time online. And do follow, like, share, and subscribe.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys. Bye-bye.